Yeah, I got this awesome box from Milk Makeup today. It's got
I know your box is awesome. I'm
all
just kidding. I don't
all the
swing
lip
that way.
oils.
Ooh, that looks fun.
It is
Do
fun.
they stain? Is
No,
that
I
the
have one on
deal?
now. They're all really just kind of clear. They have a little pigment in them, but I don't think enough to make a real big,
Hmm.
And it's got like a little mascara down here. I
So
just
what's the
unboxed them
difference?
on my stories.
I can't even
Flavors.
talk.
This one is
They
like
taste? I don't want to taste
mhm,
it.
clear
Blech.
with sage and peppermint.
Okay, maybe.
Tahitian vanilla. This is the one I have on now. This like rosy beige. Then this one is an orange with a citrus flavor. This one is hot pink watermelon. This
Nice.
one is mauve with guava. And then this last one is like a cocoa, chocolate brown cocoa flavor. Anyway, they're
But
lovely.
doesn't that like encourage you to lick your lips? And I don't like the
Mm,
way makeup tastes. Two, if I put makeup on, I don't want to be like,
well, A, it's not an overwhelming taste. In
hmm.
my opinion, it's not like so overwhelming that you're like, I want to eat it. I wonder what that sounds like on a
Do you
podcast.
like mine?
That sound effect. Oh my God, it's like Silence of the Lambs. Hello, Clarice.
Your
You
makeup
are
looks
so
really
messed
pretty
up.
though.
Oh God. So A, I don't feel like I really want to eat it, and B, I need to move this closer. And B, a lip oil, in my opinion, is a little bit different than like any other kind of lip product because
Hmm.
it doesn't have it's not sticky at all. It's oil, you know?
Interesting.
So
I would think it would have more staying powder because you know how people complain about sticky and like your hair gets, I mean, we don't have
no,
the
this
hair
won't do
issue,
that.
but
This won't do
still it's
that.
like, yeah,
It's
you know.
like close to being almost like a cleansing balm consistency. It's thick,
Okay.
but it's an oil. It's like Johnson and Johnson like made that creamy baby oil that's like a gel. It's kind of like that.
No,
Creamy baby oil. Have you never used that on your
no,
body?
no. I mean, I've used baby oil, but not
Like
really like on
Johnson and
purpose.
Johnson makes a cream, it's like a baby oil in a gel format, and it
No,
has
I've
like
never
a
heard of that.
different, better smell too. It's like a cocoa butter smell. You can
Huh.
find it in the baby aisle. In the summer, I'm a big like I have to put lotion on my body every single
No,
time I get out of
same,
the shower. Every
same.
single time I can't miss, or I will be a scaly like reptile.
No, I'm
It's not
same.
cute.
I use body butter, like
Yeah.
Bath and Body Works. It's terrible. Ugh. I used
Yeah.
to work for them. No offense to, but
Yeah.
there's just a lot of junk in there versus Body Shop because I used
Yeah,
to
I
make
love the
my own
Body Shop's body
skincare and stuff.
butters.
And yeah, you just
They
don't
smell
need,
great.
yeah, you don't need a bunch of junk and,
Yeah. I'm a
glycerins
big
and things.
Palmer's cocoa butter, the oil, I just use that. It tastes like
Yeah.
a coconut cocktail.
Do
Like,
you, it tastes like it because you
or I
eat
mean
it?
like smell taste. That's what I
Yeah.
imagine it tasting like if it was like a fruity cocktail. It's like a pina colada.
Like summer.
It's like summer. So I love that. And
I get
plus
it.
this is gonna sound so like first world problem, like the most bougiest thing I've ever said on in public. I get I get worn out rubbing lotion in. So I want oil. I want an oil
I'm so exhausted.
because it's quicker.
Being me
It
is
just
exhausting.
all this polishing and grooming and self-care, fuck it
No, it's
all.
true. It
No,
is
I feel
it's
like if it's something I
maintenance.
have to do it every single day when I get out, I'm like, I just need the hydration as quick as possible. Like a spray would be good. But if
Hmm.
it is a lotion that I have to rub and rub and rub and rub and rub, I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
want to do all this. I'm breaking a
No, I
sweat
get
just to
that.
do my whole body. So I find that the Palmer's cocoa butter oil just absorbs really quickly. I don't feel sticky or greasy. Like it absorbs really quickly.
Hmm.
So I can put my clothes on right away, and I'm not worried that
No,
I'm going to
yeah.
get oil on my clothes.
Hmm.
The only
Which
thing
we
you
both have
can't put
done.
on, we both have done. The only thing that you cannot put on immediately is like anything silk. You know those silk
Right.
slip dresses? If I put the
Yes.
cocoa butter oil on and I don't wait like an hour,
Yeah.
any little bit is going to show up on that silk. So
Yeah. I
word
use
to the
castor
wise.
oil or almond oil,
Yeah.
or I'll mix that with the body butter. And I always do it in the shower just because
Yeah.
when you're wet, it goes on better, I feel like.
True.
And
True.
yeah, That's my jam.
So much self-care of knowledge and value we're providing in our cold open here, Karen.
I'm just saying,
Should we get into our episode, maybe? Hey friends, welcome to the Separated at Birth podcast with your hosts, Katie Martin and Karen Burke-Brown. This is the podcast where we find alignment in the most unlikely places, proving that lightning can strike anywhere at any time. We'll weave together a world of middle-aged empowerment as single moms, businesswomen, and creatives. Finding alignment, navigating relationships after divorce, raising kids, building businesses in the creative space, and doing the hard work of unearthing our very best selves in the process and having a lot of mother effing opinions about it. We're so stoked to have you here, so let's go. Let's get into the episode. Welcome to the Separated Birth podcast. I am your host, Katie Martin, and I'm here with my illustrious bestie for the restie,
Karen Burke-Brown. I am
Karen
illustrious
Burke-Brown,
today.
Everyone. She's illustrious every day.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, goodness. Well, we're just so happy that we get to kick it with all of you guys and bring you some real life experience that we hope you're going to be listening wherever that may be going, man, I feel you so hard. Maybe you'll learn something from all of this. Maybe you'll just find it to be so relatable. Maybe a different perspective on something that you might be struggling with or championing. We're hoping to bring you guys amazing guests, but today it's just the two of us and we have a juicy topic for you, which is basically just some relationship history. One of the biggest threads in Karen and my friendship is the fact that we've seen each other through some heartbreak, and we have been just, I know for me, she's been such an enormous sounding board for me, trying to just kind of navigate which feelings are not necessarily mine because they're all mine to bear, but what is my responsibility in a relationship, and when, how is it are you responsible for knowing red flags and listening to those and acting on behalf of yourself, and being a mom and divorced and having kids, and like it's just such a jungle. It's such a jungle, and I know Karen's been through it too, so we just kind of wanted to go back in time to some of our past relationships. This is not meant in any way to just vilify anyone out there that might have been in a relationship with either of us in the past, but this is just our story. This is just our side of it, and just kind of how we walked through it, the things that we learned. I think when you're talking about the pain, Karen, what came to mind is almost like saying, there's no playbook for life, and you have to go back to that past version of you and say, thank you for surviving that. Thanks for surviving that, for teaching me what you taught me. Cause that's really the only way to kind of navigate it in the aftermath of it, is like, okay, I'm still here. I'm still alive. I'm still going. I still have my heart inside my chest. I still have, all these things in my life, but I'm wiser. I'm tougher.
Well, and I think that, and I actually just posted this today. I posted a quote that says, if you went back and fixed all the mistakes you ever made, you would erase yourself. And I think we are a product of our upbringing. We are a product of our experiences. And, it's like life is a journey, and that's what it comes down to. And that all of these things that happen to us make us who we are in this moment. And then as we go through the journey of life, and it's everything that happens to you beyond the things that happened to you in the past or how you were brought up continue to be part of like that melting pot of your personality. And indeed, I would not be who I am today. And I feel like I'm going to be emotional. I don't know why. But
let's just say this. Karen's gone through a heap of shit ever since she was a kid. So let's just put it out there. That's a heap of shit.
Yeah.
You're like the toughest person I know, honestly. Like the things you've gone through, and like the fact that you're smiling, you have these healthy children, they're beautiful. Like you have a home, you have everything this bitch has, she got herself. She absolutely worked her butt off. She was not handed a goddamn thing. And you're honestly my hero. And that's why I come to you for advice, frankly. I know that you've had so much garbage ever since you were a kid, but what that has, you are now such a you're Yoda in that in a lot of respects for a lot of that. You know what I
I'm
mean?
I'm
Nobody knows
struggling
it
just
better
like
than you.
everybody else, really. I mean, and I am not in any way on a pedestal or, any, I mean, anything like
You're
that.
not
I'm
preaching. This is your truth.
right. And
It
it
sucks,
is the
actually.
truth. It's not
Yeah.
like, oh, there's versions or anything. No, this is, how I grew up totally sucked. And, you can blame parents and, things like that. I try to just take a step back and look at things and just say, you know what? I'm a silver lining person all day
Mm-hmm.
long, because I
Mm-hmm.
think it's very easy to get stuck in the, well, this happened to me. And because of this, or this is why I make bad
Yeah.
choices. We
Do
all make
you
bad choices.
do you want to give the listener, just because I know if I was listening to a podcast, I'd be on the edge of my seat going, well, what kind of shit are we talking about here? So can you give maybe some broad stroke context, just so that once they
Mhm.
start listening to kind of the wisdom that was a result of those things, they'll have a little framework.
So I was one of four children, and two boys, two girls. I was the, two older brothers than me, than my younger sister. Um, Child of an alcoholic, and grew up in a very dysfunctional household. My parents got divorced when I was around 9, but prior to that, there was quite a bit of, physical abuse. And when I say my dad was an alcoholic, I mean, he got sober when I was a junior in high school. And they do a thing when you go through, basically rehab. They, put you through the gamut of tests and, net intake type thing. And what is your preferred, drink? Is it drugs? Is drink, whatever? And so he's in rehab and getting checked in, and they determined that, basically how much you're drinking determines how long you'll have the shakes. How long, do we
Yeah.
really have to put you on watch? Are you going to kick it in 24 hours because your body is in shock?
Yeah.
Um, and they determined he drank close to 100 beers a day. A
Crazy.
hundred beers a
A
day,
100 beers. I mean, I remember
but
hearing that from
didn't
you the
pass
first
out.
time and being like, wow,
Didn't
wow.
pass out. Just was a functioning alcoholic. Had
Just
a
years
business.
of
Yeah.
tolerance. Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
would be drinking, have a beer in the shower at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Was a business owner, went, and I say business owner loosely because he lost everything because of drinking. But he did get sober. And anyway, but there was, tons of abuse prior to that. My brothers almost killed my brothers, kind of thing. Just
Yeah.
threw him in the pool and just dumb shit that you do. And in fact, as an adult, we even had conversations with him like, yeah, dad, you used to do this, during a period of time when he was sober, because we think he lost his sobriety there before he died because he was in pain. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
it,
Mm-hmm. I remember that
forgiveness,
conversation too.
forgiveness.
Yeah.
Um, but having that conversation and saying, hey, yeah, this happened, dad, he didn't want to hear it. He was just like, I would never do that. I'm like, we forgive you because you weren't in your right mind. This is,
Yeah.
you're
You're being
doing shit
controlled by
that,
a demon. Yeah.
right, and your brain is pickled and whatever. So that was just a microcosm of, kind of pre-adolescent. And then had a stepdad who was not a nice person at the time. And just my mom just was not the best decision maker. I don't think she was a bad person, but very checked out, not available, which is probably why then I chose poorly with emotionally unavailable people, men
Mm.
in particular. Just it was not a good growing up time. And I was very much on my own, bought my own shampoo when I was 10. I've had a job since I was 9 years old, put it that way,
Mm-hmm.
between sweeping driveways, babysitting, because, back in the 80s, you babysat when you were like 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you could think of, I did it to make money. So I was buying my own food. I was like the free lunch ticket kid. Just, we didn't have electricity, and I grew up in Arizona. There were often times when, it's
No
100 and something
AC.
degrees out,
Yeah.
no AC, but I show up for school. I played sports and tried to put on a brave face every day. Hated school because I never wanted anyone to think that I was the poor kid, even though I was. So I think that's where a lot of we touched on this, I think, in an earlier episode, where my sort of presentation, or not fascination, not even, I'm not even sure I have the right word for it, where maybe a preoccupation with looking a certain way, and not in a vain way, just in hey, I don't want people to judge me or think that I'm a poor kid because I don't have any food, or because I don't have AC, I can't show up looking, bad or stinky or whatever. So I would, really try to make the most of the clothing that I had. I kept a journal, a diary of, what I would wear so that I wouldn't do any kind of outfit repeating, which seems very simple and like, oh, that's kind of fun. And let me mix it.
Such an
But I learned,
amazing coping method for a child
right,
to do when you have
right,
5 shirts and you're like, how can I make this? How can I
right,
stretch my wardrobe? And you're still doing that to this day for people,
right.
which is
So
amazing.
I'm
I
like,
mean,
oh,
it's
let me
so
show you how to do
incredible how
this.
those
Right. Those
that
things came to
trial
me.
and that trauma planted a
Mm-hmm.
seed that you now actually use to help people not in a trauma situation. They're just like, man, I
Right.
got too many clothes and I need to purge out. And like, what's the most essential? And you see, like, I can make an essential last a lifetime
Right.
because of
And
your
how
situation. I
to
mean, that's
take that
so
one piece.
crazy.
We can take a summer piece and make it a winter piece. And
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
because it's sort of this scrambling effort to show up and still look the part, whether it be, hey, I'm a chameleon, I can show up for this kind of job. I can do, and I've had multiple jobs and I still
It's so
have
funny.
multiple jobs.
I think you always had a sense, probably as a kid, like, I may not have much, but I'm not poor. In your
Yeah.
heart.
And
Like you've
it
got a
was,
lot to offer. You knew you were athletic, you were beautiful.
yeah.
You might have,
Well,
some fucked up shit going on at home, but at the same
yeah.
time, like you didn't, there's a difference between you were never a victim. You were always like, I'm going to take whatever
Right.
this is. That is such a incredible thing for a child to have to do,
And you
is
shouldn't have to do that. And
no,
but it's
no.
something. When I was a kid, I knew there was something in me. I knew this is temporary. I knew
Mm.
that time would go on, and it wasn't just like, is this my life? it
So many
it
people
was, I
cannot
got this many more
inherently
years.
know this too shall pass.
And
You
I
think
don't
you're
know.
suffering forever.
Right. I don't know where that came from necessarily. I mean, we lived in a shelter a couple times as a kid. Like it's not like, oh, my dad was an alcoholic, he had a drinking problem. No, it was like I was one of those people. Like, so I
Hmm.
always have a thing about being homeless. And I kid you not, I'll be like, could I sleep under that bridge? Like, I think that those are every day. I think that, how could I
That's
sleep
mm,
there for a couple days and hide? Like, I have
hmm
those
hmm
thoughts
How long
still
could I survive
today.
in my car?
Right.
Yeah.
Because we had those times where we stayed in
Mm.
a shelter. We were in a battered women's shelter, for crying out loud.
Ugh.
We had that. It's called the Faith House in Arizona,
You
which I'm
and all
I'm
four of
sure it's
you?
still there. Uh-huh.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. How old were you
And
at
then
that
at one
time?
point my mom, how old was I?
Yeah.
Anywhere from like 6, 7, 8, because she left. We officially left when I was about 9.
Hmm.
But there was a time she left and left us home. And
Mm.
I still remember that feeling. It's weird.
Mm.
I don't know
Core
why I'm so
memory.
emotional. I just remember that being like,
Mm.
well, if she leaves, we're fucked.
Mm.
Like, not that she was just kind of the she kind of kept things chill. She took a lot of the, I mean, I didn't see him beat her, but I know he did. And I know that, there were stories of he would wake her up at like 4 a.m. to make breakfast for him and his drunk friend and like yank her out of bed. And she bruised her tailbone and had to wear a brace, like just
Yeah.
stuff. I didn't
Yeah.
see that,
Yeah.
but he did
Just
beat
the
the crap out
wreckage
of
of
me and the
it.
boys. And yeah, didn't really touch my sister. Which again, I don't think of like, oh my gosh, I was beaten. It wasn't like that. I don't feel like I hang on to so much because we got beat with the belt, but I kind of deserved it because I like threw rocks at cars and stuff with my brothers. Um, I've always had really good aim, so it's just a thing that I'm like, oh, that one. So and oranges and things like that. But
I think you
um,
probably deserve to be corrected, but
oh,
not beaten.
I it I think the boys got it worse. I think the
Yeah.
boys really, because it's kind of a male thing. I definitely
Yeah.
got, the bare butt
That
spankings with the
generation
belt.
definitely believed a lot more in like corporal
Yeah.
punishment. You know what I mean? I
Yeah. My
remember going to
sister,
elementary school and there's a paddle on the
oh,
wall
yeah, they
in the
still did that.
principal's office. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
My
it was a
brothers got
different
that
different time.
for sure. Although I think some kids still need that pretty hardcore. But
Yeah.
anyway, but so that was mostly my childhood. And then growing up with a single mom who just didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out and just always ended up back in the same place, even though she had multiple jobs all the time. So I get that from her.
Yeah.
I know how to clean, and so I try to take the good things and try to understand the things that I think are screwed up and try not to pass those on. But it's inevitable. I'll hear myself say something. I'll catch sight of my profile or something, and I'm like
Oh,
and some people are like, "Oh, my mom." I'm like, "No,
I think you're breaking some
no,
ancestral bonds just from where I sit,
yeah,
as your
I
friend.
appreciate
And
that."
I do. I think you're so courageous, and the way that you've reframed and shifted the prism on your life in a healthy way and taking those lessons. So
Well,
so
what's
to fast forward then,
yeah,
now you're a grown woman and your choice in, you know, partner and marriage and, all of
in
that.
very few relationships. I dated a little bit in high school.
Hmm.
Never really had anything super serious.
Hmm.
My first husband was, the kid's dad, 3 children. He was
Hmm.
actually my first real boyfriend, the first real, like, this is for real type situation. And all of the things that happened as a kid, and, there was sexual abuse in there as well from a neighbor, that went on for a little while. And you definitely carry those things into adulthood, obviously, in the choices
Yeah.
that you make. And um, when I got married, I didn't realize how screwed up it was growing up until the person that I chose, who I thought was the safe choice. His parents were still together. He never had a sip of alcohol until he was 21. Very responsible, firstborn, kind of, you know, could hunt and fish. I've always had this weird thing about, like, okay, if I'm homeless, what's going to happen? Or if I lose my job, we can live
Hmm.
off the fat of the land. It was
Yeah.
kind of that deep seated sort of sense of, I need to be able to survive kind of thing. And this is the person. And if there's a war, literally or figuratively, this is the person I want in my foxhole. This is
Yeah,
the guy.
that's sort of we can be feminists all we want, but we're hardwired to procreate. Our job here is to be the nurturing and the carrying on of humanity. We're designed to make babies and carry humanity on, and the men are designed to protect us while we do that, and
Yeah.
like it or not, that's just a hard wiring in terms of humanity. So as much as you and I, especially now, are like, make my own money, have my own house, raise my kids, I do it all myself kind of thing. At the end of the day, I would still argue that we both would love to be taken care of,
Of
like love that.
course.
Love that.
Of course.
Yeah.
I don't think that's in the cards for me. Well, and I've always had an independent streak. I've always, because I was forced to. So as a
Hmm.
child of
Yeah.
alcoholic,
Yeah. You
you
can't,
grow up
just because
very
you can doesn't
quickly.
mean you want to, though.
No, right. I am physically able and I can do all the things, but I really shouldn't have to. But that is the thing about children of alcoholics. You do become an adult very quickly. I didn't really have to caretake my dad. It wasn't
Yeah.
like that, like, hey, you're going to make me lunch. Hey, you're going to take. He was just not around, which caused my
Hmm.
mom to then pick up the slack. And
Did you feel a
um,
responsibility to kind of feel very responsible for where your brothers and sisters were?
Kelly, my younger sister,
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
sure.
Hmm.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
was her
Taking up
caretaker.
for her. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my mom kind of forced my brothers to be that too, which, I mean, I love that personally. I think there's camaraderie in that. And I think it's important to have that relationship with your brothers and sisters. I know there's some pushback about, like, oh, you shouldn't have to babysit. Older siblings shouldn't have to. I just think that's part of being in a family, that
Yeah.
you kind of, you watch out
I
for
love
them.
that my kids take up for each other.
Yeah. And
I've never been a violent person. Like I just loathe violence. It's not part of who I
mhm.
am. I'm a big animal advocate. Like I don't like things getting hurt or killed. And, sometimes I have like really bad check-ins with myself on eating meat, things like that. I just, I'm too heart led that way in a lot of ways. But so it would shock people that for me to instruct my kids, like, hey, you don't ever start a fight, not ever. If
Right.
someone comes messing with you and they take a
Sure.
swing at you or they take a swing at your little brother or sister, you go full honey badger on them. You have
Right.
my full permission. I will have your back.
Absolutely.
That is like,
Yep.
it's always like the Hulk story. you know, d- don't anger him. Bad
Right.
idea to anger him. He's gentle and loving and never going to hurt anybody
But if
unless
you
you
come
mess
at
with him.
me,
If you
I am
come
not
at me
backing down.
more than once, I'm going to mess you up.
Yeah.
So,
I tell the kids that too. Like,
yeah,
well, if I fight, I'll get in trouble. I'm like, I'll take you for an ice cream cone. Are you kidding me?
completely.
You punch them. We've taught them like right there. You punch
Yeah.
them right in the nose. That will
All
stop them in their tracks.
Yep. Eyes, throat,
Yeah.
nuts.
Yep. That's right. You punch them in the dick. That's what I
That's
say.
right. Kick him in the dick. All right.
But so yeah, I ended up choosing someone that I thought was all
Seemed
the
so
things.
safe. Seemed like
Right.
all the things. Not
And then
touching the booze and
right.
had a job and
right. Had
secure
goals and aspirations. And I'm like,
Yep.
all right, I can go anywhere. I can get a job
nuclear
anywhere.
family. I mean,
Right.
this was the picket fence situation you were
And
looking at. And
it was not so much like, oh, what can I get from this person because you're normal. It was just like, oh, this is a really good, solid person.
Yes, this is what I've been looking for, and that's fine.
Fast forward, we were together 20 years, married for 16, and I ended up alone. He went to prison. And so you think of all the choices that you make to put you in a position that's not like your family. And, they say you choose your father and that kind of thing. And so I thought, I am breaking these curses. Not thinking that at the time, but, I'm sure deep down you're driven to pick something that you didn't have kind of thing. And he went to prison, a white collar crime that, there's still some debate whether, he got railroaded. I do believe there's some truth in what happened, but I also believe he wasn't a bad person. I don't think he ever did anything underhanded, but was forced to take a plea. We cashed in all of our retirement, every single investment vehicle that we had, including actual vehicles, to pay for defense, which, that's another whole nother story that I just do not trust anything about the government anymore because there was nothing that could be done. So if the government has you kind of in their sights, roll over. And that's what he had to do.
Yeah.
So he had to take a plea.
So this was a financial crime, and
yes,
he went away, and
5 years
were left with no credit, 3 children to provide for, and no money. And
the 2 years that we fought it, that he fought the charge and anything in the indictment, essentially, he wouldn't work. So there was a level of depression that I hadn't seen him go through. Mind you, there's a whole other pot of shit in there, which is my brother-in-law had passed away, he was a partner in his, my ex's business. Then my dad died, and then my brother died 6 months later. So I had 3 deaths, like physical deaths in my life.
Within that 2-year window of you guys fighting everything and him not working.
Yes. So he lost his business. I helped him build that business.
That is a pot of shit.
Over 10 years. I mean, changing clothes in my car, going from one job to another, and every extra dollar
you still do that, babe.
I do
Karen
still do that.
still changes her clothes in the car and goes from one job to the next job.
I do. She
is a hustler. She's the hustler of hustles.
I got 2 hours. What can I do
to make some money in between? Yeah.
I'll go see this client. I'll go do this. I'll go hop in a plane. I'll go get in the car. But
that's your childhood and all of this. This is your life. Like
it's a trauma response.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I vacuum. I clean incessantly.
I do tend to clean. It's something my mom picked up on that I do. And she said, be careful you're not stuffing things. So here's, my mom who can't face shit, but she's like, hey, don't stuff your feelings.
Out advice. Yeah.
Right. I'm like, let's maybe look in the mirror. Right. But so I was left with less than nothing. So we were 4 months behind on rent because he was lying about things and not being forthcoming about paying bills. And so not only was I left with, the kids by myself, I had a couple part-time jobs and was kind of rebuilding. And we've spoken about this before. I thought, oh my gosh, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to be overloaded. I'm going to feel like my kids are a burden, or how am I going to do all this on my own? When in fact, the things I thought to be true were not, where me not having to worry about him was a blessing. It
Yeah. Ugh,
freed me
that's
up
so crazy.
emotionally. It made it just, it encouraged me. Like I just didn't have to, there were different worries. I could
It's
shift the
like
worry.
you're in a boat and the boat's taking on water
Mm-hmm.
and you're trying to scoop the water out, but your partner is actually pulling the plug at the same time,
I
not
have
helping
said
things.
this before.
So
I'm
at the
rowing
same,
the
you're
boat.
just
I
like,
look
oh
back and he's
man, thank
shooting
God
holes in the
he's not
boat. Yeah.
siphoning it out,
Yep. Yep.
making things way harder. So I
That and my
totally
kids
understand.
became where I thought, oh my God, they were, it gave me more energy, which is like the exact opposite of what I thought would happen. Because I thought,
Yeah.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
how am I going to?
Manage
And it
all that.
was, I don't know if it was having one less person to worry about, freed me up emotionally, spiritually, physically to be like, we got this. I
Yeah.
caught us up.
Give the
We
ages of
moved
the kids at the time that this happened.
4,
Hmm.
5, and let's see, wait, 14,
Hmm.
13,
Hmm.
13, just about to be 14. So we're talking about my oldest child, and
I have to
you
say,
go
thank
to
goodness
school.
that your oldest child at that time, that's such a sweet, like that tender time of middle school, was a
Mm-hmm.
boy.
It was rough. It was rough.
Hmm.
And
Not
I,
to say that it's any less traumatic or whatever, but I just think that
yeah,
yeah.
it was difficult. It was very difficult. And
How did they feel about like what was like, how did they view him? Did you
so,
protect him by telling them
absolutely.
a certain
Oh yeah.
story? Yeah.
So with my oldest, he understood everything that was happening. But again, they all went to school. We went to
Did they
court
think,
and
oh,
came
this
home
is
and he
just
was
a
gone.
really bad circumstance, it's not daddy's fault?
Yes.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
oldest.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And um, the younger two, um, I, the best way I thought I could wrap it
Yeah.
in a neat little bow, because I'm a finisher, and I needed to sort of wrap my mind around it, and how can I present this to them in a way that they'll understand, not give them too much information, but just
Mm-hmm.
enough to where it settles their heart a little bit, which is
Mm-hmm.
just using it as a life lesson. And hey, look, dad was around people that made bad decisions, and so it's important who you hang around with. And
Mm-hmm.
say you and I go shopping, you shoplift, I'm in trouble too. So, and
Yeah.
that's real life. And so it's
Yeah.
very important who
That's
you
a very,
choose to
very
spend time
good
with.
analogy. Yeah.
And it's like the best way I could describe it, which was, hey, dad was around people who didn't make good decisions, therefore he got in trouble too, so he needs to go to this place and basically work there until they decide his
He's not
time
in
is
trouble
paid back.
anymore. Yeah.
Right. And so that they could grasp and
Yeah.
understand somewhat, just being grounded, or taking privileges away. And as time went on, when they were a little bit older, did they understand? So once he did get out, which was about 5 years later,
Mm-hmm.
they were like, wait, was was he in
That
prison?
work trip was a little different than we thought.
Right. And
Yeah.
in fact, because it was a federal prison, it was a work camp. They didn't wear, in fact, they used to wear khakis and like polos. And
Mm.
then, so within like a year or something, we were there, they started wearing jumpsuits. And
Yeah.
it still looked like a kind of like a Dickies jumpsuit. So it wasn't like everybody's walking around with
Yeah.
handcuffs. There's no fences.
Farmers,
There's no
not,
fences.
yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then got involved with someone else after that, because I went through a divorce, which the marriage was over prior to any sort of sentencing, because there was just a lack of drive to do anything. I was just as depressed, if not more. I had lost all of these things myself, but
Yeah.
I still kept getting up every day. I'm like, I want to lay around and, live in my depression for a while, but there was no time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
The electric bill needs to be paid. The kids need to eat. And so I became the responsible one. So even though I always was independent, we really kind of had quite a dramatic shift where I became much more of the alpha. Um, almost a caricature of myself. And he became not not effeminate, but a little bit, because he'd be
Mm-hmm.
like, well, I can't get a full-time job. Who's going to take care of the kids now? I'm like, let's cross that bridge when we come to it. How about let's
Yeah. We'll
just get out
manage.
there
Yeah.
and, but again, you've been indicted. You are like, he lost all of his licenses, his financial licenses. So I'm like, go park car. This will be a blip. And so one of the last conversations I had with him, I remember saying like, do not let this define you. We'll make prison our bitch. Like this is not,
Yeah.
no, that's not what I want to do. And I'm like, just don't give up. Let the kids see that shit happens to people.
Yeah.
It's not what happens to them. It's what happens
Yeah.
when you kind of keep moving or
Now
what
you
you
got to
do with
slay the
it.
dragon. Mm-hmm.
And he could not even said, I can't do it. I cannot do it. And so I was like, I can't be on the shit end of your bad decisions anymore. And I just couldn't do it. And I was like, this isn't me and you in a studio apartment, just being like, we'll figure it out. This is 3 people who are depending on us. We made the decision to have these people and to guide them and to love them. And right now you are throwing all of that away. And so I have to take that up. So I became the mom and the dad, and
You've been that. Yeah.
which is how I grew up, and I didn't like it. And
Oh,
I'm not equipped. We are not equipped to be both. We are not biologically, scientifically. It's not how we're equipped. We fool ourselves. That's my belief, into thinking we can do that because
yeah. We wear this like
it's,
cloak of like, oh, pride. It's
mm-hmm,
pride.
yeah,
Oh, I can do it
and
all.
survival.
And survival.
So that teed me up, I think, to fall for a total fake, and who I really truly did not want to get married, but I ended up not ending up. I chose it, but still, it would not have been my first choice. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought, this is the person I was supposed to be with forever. Oh my gosh, he's everything my first husband was not.
Mm.
And he's worldly,
He was
he's
playing a
lovely,
role.
he's
He
patient.
listened to
Yeah,
every grievance you had and then literally
became
shapeshifted.
that. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
And
shapeshifted
then,
himself into I'm gonna,
yeah,
yeah, bag
I'll
her.
be
I'm
your
gonna bag her.
everything.
Yeah.
And not the day we got married, the day I was like, different person.
Oh my
And
God.
again, looking
Yeah.
back,
He had
there were
he had
things,
won his
but
challenge over and now it
right.
was like back to being the real
Mm-hmm.
him. Yeah.
Which is not a good person, which is when I
No.
learned about narcissism. And, but it's those things that discovering those personalities,
I think, you were just in a really fragile place as
absolutely,
well. Like you were just like,
absolutely.
oh my gosh, I've got to figure this out. I'm on my own. I've got these
And
3
I
kids.
wasn't
I've got all these
looking.
responsibilities. Right. You
I
weren't
wasn't
you weren't like,
looking.
oh, I have this massive void in my life I've got to fill.
No,
It just
it
happened.
was just like, oh my gosh, this is what I had to go
Thank
through
you,
this.
God, for sending me this
Right.
person that I've
Right.
been looking for in the quietness of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And
But here's the thing.
he appears.
I still go back and forth. That's how you know you're not fully healed, because I still go back and forth with, am I still thankful that he was in my life? Because I did have to reevaluate all of the relationships in my life and be like, okay, this is why I fell for this in the first place. This is why I chose poorly getting married. I thought this, because it started with being a kid and sort of that, it sounds new agey, but you need to heal that baby girl. You need to
Yeah.
do that inner child work, which sounds so bougie to me. And
Cliche at this
so, right,
point
like,
in life.
oh,
Yes, everything's about
there
it.
is something to be
But
said
it's
though, because
honestly, yeah, the secret sauce. It
your
is.
body does not forget.
No.
You think that, oh my gosh, I'm healed, because I can hear something, I can smell something, and I am right back
Yeah. Yeah.
to when I was a kid, to when
Yeah.
it's weird. So, it's this constant thing that some days are better than others. And I try to
Isn't
just
it so incredible that you can conjure that and in one microsecond you're
yeah,
welling up with tears and I'm welling up with tears watching that.
you're just
It's how
right
you
back
know
there.
you are not, it's still there.
Yeah. But and I still think it's what you do with that, of letting it sort of flow through you. And
Yeah.
owning it, not being like, no, 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 don't stuff it. So there was some good advice in there. Don't stuff it, but just say, okay, I'm just going to let this flow through me and know that and understand it and not be
Yeah.
like, it's okay. Why did I choose that? Why is this bothering me right now? Why is, I hate the word trigger, but why am I feeling the feels? And knowing that, this reminds me of that. And how could I choose better? And how can I change my mindset? Because I do think that you are put in situations for a reason, and you will continue to be put in those situations
Yeah.
until you heal that part, because there's still that.
There's
Again,
a
I'm not
lesson.
looking.
I have been told by more than one professional that is a professional
Mhm.
therapist or some kind of whatever professionals in that field, in the mental health space, or even just in like the intuitive space, or you know, the looking at ancestral patterns, things like that,
Yeah.
that you will be given the same thing over and over and over and over
Yeah.
again until you learn your lesson. Until you learn your lesson. I know that this episode is it's very Karen. This is your story. I like love this because this is going to be part one. We'll get into my heap of shit in another episode, but to stay right here with you in this is, you know, I've listened to you, I've watched this occur. I've heard all of these stories obviously prior to this podcast. I know all these things already, but it's a mirroring of the same bullshit that I have been served up time and again. And the next time you're like, oh, this looks so different. This seems so different. This feels so
Mm-hmm.
different. And then it ends up the same. And then
Right.
you're like, how the hell did this happen? Why is this happening? Why am I continuing to, because you haven't learned your lesson yet.
Right.
And
I haven't fully done the work. And so I would
which
say
is
that for
BS,
you
because
too.
then it's like once you feel like you're doing the work, how can you trust that it's working until
That's
you
one of the
go fuck up
hardest
again?
things.
That for
Right.
me is the whole thing. It's like, okay, well then at what point do we just shut ourselves away and say, I'm sick and tired of this trying game because I keep getting it wrong.
Yeah.
And
Me right now, I'm done.
I know you're
I've
done.
had
I'm,
three
you know,
relationships.
we've
My
talked
last
about this.
relationship is
Karen and
three
I
and a
are going to
half
buy a
years.
house and
And I
have a
end up with
commune.
people who
We're
are
gonna have
not
an old lady
emotionally
commune. We're gonna be the Golden
available.
Girls.
I'm fine with that. I don't require a partner. I again, we say I would love nothing more. I don't think I'm difficult. I think that we all have our quirks, and but you just want someone who like digs your weird, and
Well,
you know and
it's
is
like
patient
people
with your
that are in
healing.
really good, healthy, long-term relationships would always argue that that's the most defining thing of their life is that
Hmm.
we're put here on earth to love each other and to
I
find
agree.
someone to enrich your life, to make it mean something bigger, to build something that's bigger than just you together, to carry on humanity in a way that's loving and passing down all these beautiful things. And for some of us,
Yeah.
it just doesn't fucking work out that way. And we keep taking another at bat and another at bat. And then we get left with this, not bitterness, but just exhaustion. I
Hmm.
think is really the word that I would use, is just exhaustion. And you think to
I
yourself,
don't.
I don't know that I have, like you said earlier today, it was just like, I
Yeah.
don't know that I have it in me to step up to the plate and take another swing. I'm just so goddamn tired.
I just the and
I think
I
I would argue though that at that point, maybe that's when, lightning will strike. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. And
You don't believe in
I
that
know I've
shit. You're like,
heard
that's a
that.
heap of crap.
Where it's like, as soon as
Lightning.
you're not looking,
Bullshit.
I just think, someone my age who's single, who's not super fucked up, well, they're probably not single then. And so I'm like, well, I
Well,
don't,
and I think that,
but then I'm like, well, okay,
I'm
I'm that
46. You're
way.
a few years older than me. Once you get to this stage in life, we all have a heap of baggage.
Sure. It's
Well,
it's
and
only
it's just
normal, but is your
complicated.
baggage cool enough to dig with my baggage? And
Yeah.
I think I'm patient in terms of giving people space. I require space.
Hmm.
I my biggest takeaway of every single relationship is people are not who they say they are. And
Right.
I am everything I say I am.
Yeah.
I don't bullshit.
I would
And
argue the same.
I just think that if you say, hey, I'm
I
ready
mean,
for
in
this and
terms of
I'm
me,
this
that
guy.
I feel like I
Yeah.
present myself authentically from the jump.
And I say that, hey, this is where I struggle. This is what, and I like to talk through things. I think that's a very sort of female characteristic anyway. Dudes are just like, whatever. But
Do
me
you I
talking
think
through
in
my
the
feelings is
let's
not
take
starting a fight.
narcissists let's take narcissists off the table though. Wouldn't you argue that most people would answer the question, do you, they always say like at the beginning you're dating the representative, you're dating the political version of them until you get to the real version of them, which is always just human nature. We want to put our best selves forward
Mm-hmm.
in a new scenario. That's just going to happen. So it's not that you're not presenting yourself accurately. You're just trying to do your best and impress this person if you're into them. And so wouldn't you argue that most people would answer that question the same?
I don't know. I mean, I think, I just think that people do not present themselves. If you present yourself as a patient, loving, and understanding person, you show up as such. Doesn't mean you're perfect. I'm not asking for
No.
perfection. But if you say, I'm patient, I'm here for you, I want to listen, I am that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Then when it comes down to being that, you're not. Same thing
Yeah.
with my first husband. I'm this, I'm that. When we went through a literal war, I was the person carrying everybody in the foxhole. You're not the hunter gatherer. You're not the protector. It
I
was
think
me.
I think the thing about that is though is that the only way to really get to the person that they are is
Mm-hmm.
when it gets hard. That's when the
True.
real person shows up. In the beginning
I
when
agree.
everything's great, it's like, "Oh, then this is just this best
Sure.
version of you." It's like when rubber meets the road and the shit hits the fan, like then who shows up? Which
I
version of you is going to
agree.
show up? The one that can actually communicate, the one that handles confrontation with a maturity and
Mm-hmm.
a sense of like, let's be productive here and not just blame one another or all the
And
ugly that
I can say
happens
I
because we're
show up
defensive
like
and our
that.
walls go up.
If you say, hey, I don't like the way you responded just then, I'd be like, I did? What did I do? How did I do it?
Yeah.
I want to be better. I want to
I think we
grow with
sharpen that
someone.
knife really well when you're with a narcissist, though, is that we're always the ones evaluating, oh,
True.
where did I go wrong? What did I do wrong? How
Mm-hmm.
is this my
Because you think
fault?
it's you.
Because you think
Mm-hmm.
it's you. And the
Yeah.
the mental gymnastics that you go through always
Oh.
is so self-reflective. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's a book that I just started reading. It's about how to communicate and how to have like really the hardest conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like this much into it, but I'm really invested in that. And it's like, man, they need to teach this in school.
But it requires vulnerability.
It
In
requires
order to
vulnerability,
have those
and you have to
conversations, you have to be like,
validate the
did
other
I do that?
person.
Crap. Right. And listen, not listen to respond because I'm
No,
thinking of my next thing.
listen,
It's
validate, then
right.
respond.
Okay. What I
Yeah,
hear you saying is this. Is that right? Because we can
correct.
talk, but I might not hear what you're saying and be like, is that
Parroting
what you
is
just said?
good. What I heard
Right.
you say was yes.
And if you're truly invested in me as a person in this relationship, you will do that and you will go to the ends of the earth to make it happen. And I am that loyal person, which
And when you
I
love
sink
someone,
because I go
I
down with the ship.
I seek to understand you, and
Mm-hmm.
I want you to seek to understand me.
Not just one way, both ways.
Right.
Yes.
I want to, if
Yes.
you're hurting, I want to understand all of that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a two-way street. So,
Yep.
there's so much more to talk about. We've been at this
Yep.
almost an hour. I love you. You're
I
just so
love you
brave
back.
and courageous. I have to say, my vagus nerve is going ape shit right now at the idea of talking about my past.
Uh-huh.
Um,
It's coming.
yeah.
Yeah. You just,
So,
I think the healing is in just facing it, not the healing, but part of it, because isn't that what they say? You can't fix what you don't face. Like you have to say,
yeah.
I am an alcoholic, or
Yeah.
I have a problem with, I have a shopping addiction, or I don't have any of those things. So
Yeah.
I think it comes out
I
in
think
other
the healthy
ways,
thing
but
too at some point is and I don't think either of us are afraid of this. As much as we've had shit happen to us, we chose it.
Mhm.
We chose it.
And I
So
don't
there's
say,
no
well, you did
victimhood
this to
here.
me. I
No,
carry it and I'm like, well, shit. I'm like,
nope.
okay, but at least we have, like, I am
My life is
born that way.
100% my fault.
Hmm. Well, and
100%. Not even
like we said
80%.
earlier,
Not even,
right
it's
now,
100%.
everything I have is because of me right now. Not that stuff is important, but I have blood, sweat, and tears the last 10 years in particular have rebuilt my life, left two marriages, which again, I always feel a sense of shame with the second marriage. But
You don't need to, babe.
I know I learned a lot, but it's still just like, oh, you've been married twice. Okay, well, it was kind of a mistake because he turned out to be an abusive. He was an abuser,
Yeah.
an abusive, lying asshole. I don't ever want to get married again. But if it hadn't happened, I wouldn't have had like sort of this growth and this self realization. So back to all of those things happen. I wouldn't change it, but I'm like, ugh, ugh. One of my friends, I have to, we have to end with this, or at
Is this
least
the one
add
you
this
sent
in.
me about the overworked woman or the overstimulated woman?
No. One of my friends said that, Facebook does the thing where it pulls people up like you might know this person
Mm.
because he is remarried. Number two, he's a bad guy. He is not a good guy. He's a chameleon. He's a fake. He's on wife number four. Um, he's so the new wife, who's a lovely person, by the way. We were all lovely. All four of us were just lovely people, which
Mm.
that's why we were
This
chosen.
is a movie in the
I
making, all of
know.
y'all.
So she sent me a message and said, so I've been down a rabbit hole. You know how Facebook and Instagram has people you may know. Blank's new wife popped up for me. She's not private. Damn, he looks like shit. You, my queen, continue to still wow me with your grace and glow. He, however, yikes, he looks so bad. And I said, well, I guess you end up getting the face you deserve. This person is older than me after all. I said, but it looks like he's not doing well. But again, it's like, not that how you look matters, but it's just, I think that's a testament to the people who know me, the people who are in my circle, know what I've gone through, that
Mm-hmm.
I'm not fake as shit. I'm not a bullshitter. Most people didn't know about number one going to prison, um, to the point where they'd be like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Wait, you had what? So I just carry myself in a certain way. I put on a happy face. I treat my people well, my kids well, my world around me. I show up happy. And I think you still choose that. So I think no matter what you've been through, you still choose happiness. You can still choose to be a good person. You can wear that shit on your shoulder like a chip and it can weigh you down, be like, well, this happened to me. This, like we were speaking about earlier. Or you can say, you know what? I know what not to do. That chip I'm going to put on the ground and I'm going to step up and I'm going to use it to springboard me into something better. I still get to choose. There wouldn't be thousands of Holocaust survivors who live to be 100, who are
Yeah.
happy go
Isn't
lucky.
that
You tell
crazy
me,
how long they lived? So many of
like,
them
and they're
lived till
lovely
100.
because that
Yeah.
happiness comes from within. And they're like, this shit
Just
happened,
a
but that
will
doesn't
to
define
live.
me. Right.
Yeah.
It's that happened. That's what you are. I go back to that you're a Holocaust survivor. That happened to you. That's not who you are. And who I am is a loving, joyful, happy, I'm crying, happy person. And I'm good to people. I'm charitable. I show up for people and I don't lie. I'm not fake. So if I say this happened, this fucking happened. I
Yeah.
don't make shit up. So,
Well,
but
I sure as shit wouldn't choose you if you were a bad person. You
right.
know, I look
I
at you
I know.
like this enormous champion who's been through such an enormous amount of life, and not great life, but has still managed to come out the other side, not as a victim, not as a bitter, resentful person that believes in the worst in people. You still look for the absolute best in people and you give the world your best. So Karen, I love you. Thanks for sharing today. I know that our
Love you
community
back.
is going to rally behind you even more now that they have some insight into your history and your background. And, being vulnerable, I firmly believe is where our superpower is because that is how
Hmm.
we connect really and truly to others. And so, none of this information that we shared today or that I'll be sharing or whatever is meant to throw people under the bus or make us look like, oh, we're the best and we made all these right decisions and they're the
Hmm.
ugly, they're the blame. It's just this is my truth. My life is my fault. And at the same time, I know there's other people out there that maybe are still in the ditch. They're in the ditch and they don't see a way out. And your story of taking it and
Resilience,
rolling with
fucking
it, literally
resilience.
taking that stumbling block and using
Yeah.
it as a step stool to the next level is so inspiring. So thank you. I
Like
know
we
that
said
they're going to
before,
love
it's
you.
not what happens to you, it's designing the life that you want. And
Hmm.
you can come from anything and you
Hmm.
can do whatever you want. And I
Hmm.
choose to be happy. I choose to have a roof over my head and I choose to not be homeless today.
Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody
Yeah.
messes up. It's again, they always say the old saying, like, it's not what happens to you. It's how you react. It's how you respond.
Yep.
And you've responded so beautifully as a mom and a protector and a caregiver and a businesswoman and a friend and a sister. And in so many ways, I just admire you so much. So thanks for being my buddy.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here with you too.
All right.
I can't
We'll
wait
see
to
you
hear
guys
your
next time.
shit.
Oh God. I'm gonna need to drink a beer or something before that episode. We'll
We'll
get
do
there.
it.
All right. Love y'all. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.